Hello, everybody. Welcome back again to talk about the great things of God. Today, we're going to talk about leading a horse to water, and you'll understand that as we go along. What an exciting time is happening in our countries. We continue to see political uproar, accusations, both sides, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. This side's charging that they're going to take that person, and they got a whistleblower on this one and a court case for that one. And then the former president, now he gets more charges, and then those who were working with him, now they get charged. I'm telling you, they're trying awful hard to ruin people rather than get people elected based on what they believe and what they can do for our country. And our country right now doesn't care. Politicians and people, well, maybe regular folks care, but the people in charge, it seems like they don't care. They just want to make sure somebody doesn't win and or somebody loses rather than get to the issues. What's going to make us great? What's going to help us? What's going to make us strong? And what's going to keep us safe? And of course, what's going to keep us safe is irrelevant. It was irrelevant in the last election. It's really irrelevant now because right now the big issues we get is, are we going to have gas stoves? Are we going to have electricity? Are we going to have electric cars? Is electric cars going to take away from the grid? Are we going to pump in for gas, pipeline for gas, petroleum anymore? All these things. And then, of course, all the school bickering. Are we going to teach sex in the first, second, and third grade? Come on. We have a world crisis going on that is planning to take over the Western world as we know it and take away what we have. We have other nations. They are going to unify themselves together. And even though they probably wouldn't get along either, but they're going to, for the sake of what they want, they're willing to get along. We're not willing to do that, but they are. Other nations are willing to get along, even though we are completely divided over the stupidest things and the most ridiculous issues that a common, normal person knows that the sexual things being taught in schools, the first, second, and third grades, are just ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. And the bickering and fighting and sex trafficking going on in our country today, and all these issues, we need to unify our country and settle down to what is going to save us. Okay. And when we get that and understand what it is that makes a nation strong, then we go and we clean up the trafficking, we stop the stupidity in the schools, get back to good education, get our economy back, and get our military strong, all the things that are going to keep us safe. And any parent knows that their job is to keep kids safe, keep them out of the street, keep them from being run over by a car, keep them from, being kidnapped by a bad guy, all those things. And so it's essentially the same thing. There are bad guys out there. There are bad people out there. And we need to do what it takes to get it done. We need to get crime down. We need to get protected again. And so we're missing the whole point and bickering about the wrong things and angry about the wrong things as we continue to go forward. So anyway, back to what I was saying is we have countries that are willing to set aside, get this willing to set aside their differences to unify their military strengths together to get what they want. So this is no longer a Western dominated civilization on the earth, but it is an Eastern dominated civilization on the earth, dominated by people that don't agree together wholeheartedly, but they have one thing in common. They want to stop the United States. They want to stop the United States and the power of the United States. And then they're going to come after every other country in Europe and the surrounding areas of Europe to cause them to become secondary, no longer democracy, led by other nations and other governments. How are they going to do that? They're going to build up their strengths to the point to where they have the ability to threaten and the ability to destroy and then give us the ultimatum. Are you willing? Are you willing to negotiate and give up something in order to save yourselves from destruction or bombs or whatever? And the question right now is, I'm not sure we are. We have millions of Americans that feel that the United States has failed. America is a failure. It's a failure as a republic. It's a failure as a democracy. They want to take away all our past and restructure it. And there's millions of people that are discouraged, thinking that the United States of America is a failure. And so why not throw it away? So it's a very, very difficult time that we live in right now, understanding, getting our priorities straight. So when you see all this bickering in politics, trying to cover up and then trying to arrest and trying to get a government, get it in court and all this stuff, it's missing the issue, right? It's missing the issue. We need to save our country and we need to get down to business. If people have committed a crime, then let's prosecute them. If they haven't, then quit trying to continually do it, right? And let's do it or not do it for either side. And let's get down to business of back to our government instead of our politicians on, what are they on? These committees, and the committee to find out who did this and the whistleblower and all that. Instead of that, let's get going on what's going to save and make our nation strong. You hardly hear anybody talk politics, real politics, right? It's all committees and accusations, who did what, and cover-ups and CIA and let's get her done and get going and save our nation. And all this is a distraction. Pardon me a minute. All it is a distraction to good government, which we don't have. I noticed, Zion, did you notice that our president dozed off talking to the leader of Israel, one of the main leaders of Israel? I don't know who was he talking to, the president of Israel? It wasn't Netanyahu.
No, it was
one of their other.
Let me see it. I'll real quick.
Because I might know him. I know the president, but Herzog, but I don't think it was him. And it was
the prime minister, I think.
Oh, maybe so. But whoever it was, he's talking. You could see him dozing off. It was Herzog. Huh? It was Herzog?
I think so, yeah.
He's the president. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, President Herzog. And I met him and been to the president's home and spent a long time talking to him about different things. And so the president dozes off and falls asleep. Okay, all right. Let's, we need to wake up, and our country is in really, really need because of so many influences. And what it's doing is the influences within our country that are distracting us and sometimes making us laugh. Sometimes news people are laughing at our politicians that are distracting, and more committees and more accusations and more legal maneuverings and all that. It's distracting us from the enemies that are far away, that are planning right now to attack the United States. All right. North Korea set off another rocket that is starting to get closer and closer to land on our country, land on our nation. Do they want to land on our nation? Maybe, but chances are they're going to negotiate and get things they want to become a greater world power, and they're going to want us to give stuff to them. So there you go. That's what's really going on, and that's going on constantly while we're being distracted by so many other things. All right. Now, I want to talk about this idea that you always heard. I've heard it said. I don't know where we can look up where the saying comes from, but certainly goes back to horse days when they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Okay. Now, I get it. That's guys trying to, trying to get his horse to drink, and he doesn't want to. And so it gets the idea that you can't force people, and you can't force situations, and those kinds of things. So, okay, I get that. But the actual statement, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, is actually not true. And the reason I'm trying to read some of the comments that are coming up. And the reason it's not true, and I want to say hi to everybody. And there's Beth and Jeremiah and Thora, Nathan, and Jennifer, and all those people chiming in. Hi, everybody. But it's not true. Okay. The reason it's not true is the circumstance. Okay. I get it. Somebody along the way tried to get the horse to drink, couldn't get it. Nice saying, you can't make a horse drink water if they don't want to. All right. So the idea is to change the circumstances so that they want to. All right. Now I'm going to tell you a story. All right. So way back before I was a Christian and just hanging out with guys and doing guy stuff in college days, there was a ranch with horses, and you could come and pay money and ride these horses. Now they were unsupervised totally. You get the group 4 or 5 horses together. You get on with a bunch of guys or girls. Sometimes girls went with us, and you get on a horse and go as long as you're on their property, which is huge. Or on the street. You could even go out on the county roads where they don't care. All you had to do was get the horse back at whatever time your money ran out. Okay. While you got the horse, you can do anything you want. They didn't say, well, you can't gallop. You can only, just walk the horse or whatever. You can do anything you want. And of course, so we'd walk the horse away. When we got a certain distance away, we'd kick that horse and we'd ride as hard as we could, over hill and dale and around and everywhere. And we just ride those horses, Well, the first few times you start learning this lesson. So you get out there, and now your time is getting short, and you've ridden that horse, and that horse has had doesn't particularly like it. None of the horses do. And then your time is running short. So you turn and you're going to start heading back to the barn. Okay. And as soon as the horse gets a certain distance from the barn and knows it's going back, it can get a whiff of the barn, but it gets a whiff of the water trough. And as soon as it gets a whiff of a water trough, that horse is going crazy. It is, for me, at least for us novices, it was almost an uncontrollable horse. Didn't matter what was in the way. If a rail, if a fence, they'd drive you right up against the fence. They'd go through next to trees, brush, the shortest distance, they would go crazy. And you could not control, at least novices like us, we could not control. They weren't our horses anyway. These wild horses, as soon as they knew they were going back to got a whiff of the water, they went crazy, right? And all they wanted to do was get back to the barn and get to the water, because we'd ridden them and they're sweating and they're tired, and okay. And they completely lost their mind. They were crazy horses. Okay. And so I had an instance going. So that happened, and more than once. And one time then it happened, and the horse has gone crazy, and it's galloping back out of control. I didn't really mind the gallop, except I'm out of control. And no matter what, tree limbs, brush, anything, it didn't care, And so it got going so fast that finally the horse lost its footing, and we went head over over the horse, and the horse fell and I fell, and the horse then finally landed right on my legs. And so I'm down on the ground, the horse is on my legs, and I'm going like, what happened? And the horse is crazy. So I get it up as fast as I can, and I know what's going to happen is the horse is going to run. All right. So I'm fighting the horse, trying to hold on. And like the old saying, the other saying, if you fall off a horse, what are you supposed to do? Get back up and get back on the horse. I'm going to get back on. Besides, I didn't want to walk all the way back. And I got on the horse, and he rushed back, and I rode it all the way in and let the horse go. And that was that. And so I did okay. But the next day, when I woke up, I could not walk. I could not walk at all. I tried to get up. My legs were bruised, purple, and I tried to walk. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't go to class. Couldn't go no at work or anything. And I could not move for about 2 or 3 days. I had to work my way up to it, and I could not move. All right. And so after that, then I got around horses. And next time I rode, but I didn't have any fun. It was no more fun anymore to ride a horse. I remember going later after Kathy and I were married and that, and we went to Colorado with family and stuff, and they do little trail ride horses, you know. But even then, I was nervous because even then the horses would, you know, they'd get spooked and they'd run into the back, even though you're just supposed to walk. And there was a guide, you know, everything there. But even then, the horse would, anytime the horse would spook or like, you know, I was nervous, and I don't think I'd enjoy riding a horse anymore after my tremendous crash. Even though I got back up and rode that day after that, my mind wasn't where it used to be. And I haven't ridden like that since. Okay. So the idea that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink is not true. And the reason it's not true is all you have to do is change the circumstances. Hi, Mark and Kenda, good to see you too, is change the circumstances. The way to get if you say, well, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Yes, you can. How do you make him drink? You get that horse to be a doer, do something, get active. If you make a horse active, it will drink, right? It's going to drink. We rode those horses, and they galloped, and then they got sweaty and they got hot, and we rode them for an hour and a half, paid our money or whatever. It's only like, I don't know, $15 or something for an hour, hour and a half or something like that for the poor horses. We'd ride them hard, you know, just like college guys. And you know what, though? It was easy to get them to drink. It was easy. You know why? They'd worked up a thirst, and they did something with themselves. They were active. They rode, they ran the race, you know, they galloped, they gave everything they had to give. And then, you know what? When it was water time, they lost their minds wanting to drink. They were so thirsty. They absolutely went crazy. Well, the application is for us today too, is because we have the you know, biblical principle of thirst, or thirsting and hungering and thirsting for righteousness. And I've been studying, and we've been writing on Gideon and him, you know, taking the 10,000. He took 10,000 because they had 32,000, I think. And God tells Gideon to dismiss all the cowards. And I think, what was it? Like 22,000 left. Whoa, there's a lot of cowards around us, aren't there? Okay, so all the cowards leave. So that leaves Gideon with 10,000. All right. Now, I want you to understand something that's very important here. First of all, he was able to get him to drink, but getting a horse to drink is getting the horse to be active, to do, to run, to accomplish. Okay, now we apply that to the Spirit, right? And we want people to thirst for righteousness. We want them to drink the water of salvation, right? We want them to get thirsty for God. And then we look at the churches, and where's the thirst, right? Where's the people thirsty for God? Well, the problem is we have do nothing Christianity. It's an audience. They've turned us into an audience, basically, to where we don't think in terms of doing, praying, doing, worshiping. Even worship at most churches is not active, right? It's very inactive. You stand up and do mumble through a few things and hold a hymnal or look up on the screen or whatever. But it's not loving God. You don't throw your religion Christianity does not throw its strength in anything. And so there'd be a difference if I went out on a horse those days, paid my $15, got out on a horse, and we just trotted around the barn. Just trotted around the barn. You know what? I don't know if that horse would drink or not, Because first of all, it didn't leave the water, and second of all, hadn't got active. It hadn't done anything. It hadn't put any effort. It hadn't put any strength in anything. But you take that horse out and ride it hard out there far away, and all of a sudden they get a whiff of water. I'm telling you, they are thirsty. They are go crazy with thirst, and that's what we want. You know, we want a Christianity where believers are thirsty for God, thirsty for righteousness, thirsty for the move of God, thirsty for the presence of God. Well, how do you do that? You got to get people doing stuff. People have a want to serve and do, especially in this culture where it is a do-nothing culture, where I've told you before, people work during the day with their mind on not working. Their minds are not on working. Their minds are on not working. They're thinking about not working while they're working. Factory line, truck delivery, driving that truck, you know, you got to deliver that furniture. You got to go deliver these products or whatever. Or you know, you're a truck driver for a grocery chain or whatever. You're driving that truck. You know what you're thinking about? I can't wait to not drive this truck, right? Instead of living and putting, I am alive. This is what I'm doing right now. How do I live right now driving a truck? That's what I do. If you don't want to drive a truck, do something else. But right now, that's what you are. You're a truck driver or you're whatever, and that's what you do. So how do you live driving a truck rather than not living and living in the future? Like, I can't wait till I'm not driving a truck, and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to do nothing. And so you're thinking about, I can't wait to get home and do nothing with my life. Sit. Even go to church. I'll go to church, but I'm going to sit. I'm going to do nothing. I don't plan on doing anything for God. I'm going to go. I'm going to watch the ball game. I'm going to watch other people do this stuff. I'm going to watch an adventure movie where, you know, the spies and they're shooting, they're jumping, they're racing. But I'm going to be sitting there in a chair watching, telling and reliving it as an audience. Okay? How do you get that person to drink? You can't. Because, see, God never created his people, especially, to be an audience to him, but we've been called to be doers of the word, right? To do things, to do. And so once you start doing, you understand the thirst creates because you need to drink in order to keep doing. Teaching, praying, intercession, right? Even if it's just intercession, praying, breaking through the heavenlies, right? Spiritual warfare. Evangelism, right? Then coming to church and worshiping with all your strength, thinking about it, praying for the service, praying for the worship, praying for the pastor, praying for whoever's going to preach, praying for the sick. I love it. Kathy mentioned it not that long ago. She said, you know, I heard her get up and say, you don't have to be given a microphone to have a healing ministry. Just pray for the sick. There's probably sick all around you. They're sick in the service. Just reach your hands out and start praying for sick to be healed. You may never get the credit, but you can get the healing. There ain't nothing can stop you from having a healing ministry, right? Nothing, even delivering people from the powers of the enemy. You may not get the credit. It may not be a big show and everybody goes, ooh, look, they got authority over the devil. Take authority over the devil and maybe nobody will ever know, but you got it. Do it. And start exercising your strength in worship and praise and prayer in life. And then live life. Live life doing what you're doing. Whatever you're doing right now, live it. Whatever you got to, if you're on lunch break, okay, go back to work and live work, right? Live it. Energize it. Expel energy, not just physical energy, but all kinds of energy, spiritual energy, to where you're living, because see, Jesus gives us life to the fullest measure. Truck driver, how do you live life driving a truck or teaching school or selling insurance or whatever it is? You got to figure this out, what it means to live now, in the moment right now. And when you do, you expel energy, expel spiritual energy, which makes you thirsty to replace that energy. And now you're thirsty like a horse who not just, you've seen them, they're on that little circle and you put your kid on it and maybe sometimes those horses are blind, even they don't even see, and they put them on the circle. You set your kid on it and he goes around for 3 or 4 times, and that horse just looks at you like, am I miserable? Right? But you get the horse out there and take that thing for a ride, you're not going to have one bit of problem getting that horse to drink. A horse that doesn't drink is a horse that's not doing anything with their lives, even though they may be active and have a job, have kids, raising kids, homeschooling kids, whatever it is. You've got to energize your life and live now. Run the race. Every day is a race. You spiritually run the race. You spiritually in tune with God. You spiritually are keeping yourself on the mark spiritually. Okay. So now you understand how to get yourself thirsty. Say, well, I'm not thirsty. Well, you can be. You're not doing anything to make yourself thirsty. Expel that. Get active. And the more you do, the more you're going to need from God. The more you need spiritual help, the more you need energizing, the more you need the water of the word, the more you need that river of life. Okay. So with that lesson, then we've been studying Gideon, the most magnificent revelation that I shared. I see Jeremy's from Finland, is back in Finland. Hello. Glad you made it back. But I was talking with his mother and him last week, and I shared with him about Gideon and studying Gideon. All right, so back to Gideon. So Gideon's got how many? 10,000. And a lot of times we get the idea that God was just trying to whittle it down to get as small as possible. And now I'm realizing that number is not as important, because God can beat the Midianites with 300, 400, 500, 10,000, that's, or 100. That's irrelevant. Beat them by numbers. Okay. He was going to beat them by unity. What God needed and what, Gideon needed, because he told him, he said, do exactly what I do. Gideon needed needed men to do exactly as he did. All right. Number doesn't matter. If he had 400, but only 100 would do what he did, then they're going to lose. Right. So you get as many as possible doing the same thing as Gideon. All right. So they go down and they got 10,000. And I may have to preach this at church. I'm so excited about it. But so Gideon's got 10,000 left. All the cowards are gone. And he's got 10,000. And God tells him, lead them down and have them drink. All right. So interesting enough, 9,700 of them just knelt down and stuck their face in the water. Okay. Now I heard a sermon on that, because that's not the ones God chose. God says, pick the ones who make a bowl with their hands and like it's a bowl, and drink like a dog out of a bowl. Okay. And God said, whoever does that, pick them, And, and so I've heard sermons on that God didn't want to pick the ones that stuck their face in the water, because then the enemy could come up, and that we don't want those soldiers, because enemy could sneak up behind them, and he'll sneak up behind them and kill them. Well, that's irrelevant too, because they're not going to fight a battle with swords, right? None of the Midianites, none of the Gideons, they're not going to use swords. So that's irrelevant. Not going to sneak up. So we get it. So God knows how he's going to do this, right? He's going to use torches and jars and shouts, right? They're going to wave the torches, break the jars, blow the trumpet, and shout, right? And it's going to win the battle, because it's going to throw the enemy in confusion. They're going to run, then turn on themselves, and they're going to win. Okay. So when God says, pick the ones that drink like making a bowl, like a dog, then that's going to be your army. And it turned out to be 300, which is relevant, but not that relevant, because it could have been 400. Maybe 400 would have done it. Maybe 200 would have done it. The idea is he needed to get that drank the same way. Now, how did they know how to drink? Why did 9,700 stick their faces in the water? Well, because that's the way it was done. I mean, that's the way most people did it. But 300 somehow got the idea to drink differently. They drank with their hands cupped. How did they get that? Where did they get that idea? Where do you think? They watched Gideon. 300 were followers. 300 were unified. 300 were leadership led. 300. 9,700 of them just stuck their face in the water. 300 looked at Gideon, and Gideon's drinking like this. He didn't think about it. He just drank and said, yeah. So now choose everybody that drinks like that. Why? Because they were already drinking like Gideon. They were looking at their leader saying, look how he drinks. We need, let's do whatever Gideon does. Let's drink like Gideon drinks. 300 of them. And God says, take the 300. You know why? Because they will do what you ask them to do. They already are following a leader. So now when he tells them, blow trumpets, break jars, they're not going to go, what? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. No, they're going, hey, we follow the leader. And so I think that it could have been 400. 400 could have said, look how Gideon drinks. He's our leader. Let's do what he does. And then God said, pick the ones that drink like you do. Not just drink like dogs from a bowl, but drink like you do, Gideon, because that's how you drink. And then they'll do whatever you say. They'll do what you say. It turned out to be 300, and that's all it took. It didn't take 300 jars. It took 300 unified men to break 300 jars, to shout, to blow trumpets, right? It took unity, right? And 300 unified was more powerful than the Midianite army, and threw them in confusion, and then they eventually turned on themselves. So today we have two lessons here. First of all, people will drink if they start doing. If you're not thirsty for God, say, I'm just not that thirsty. Get to doing until you're thirsty. Doing until you say, I have put out, I have prayed out, I have worshiped out, I have sung my heart out. Even though it was just me down in my own room, I prayed my heart out. And now, oh God, I'm so hungry and thirsty for you. I am so thirsty, because you gave it out. Now he puts it back in, right? And he fills and refills and fills and refills. We give out and he refills. We're not filled just to hold, to be a water tank. No, we give it out, right? And then become a follower, because we're going to need people who can follow direction. We need apostles right now. We need real apostles. We need real prophets. We need real discerning of the Spirit type of folks. And they're going to be able to say, this is what we need to do to save our families. This is what we need to do to save our nation. But if the nation won't listen, we need to save our families. Do this, do this, do this. And when I yell, do what I do, and we're going to defeat the enemy. We're going to win. Even if it's just 300 of us, we're going to win against the enemy. And so that's our lesson today. Can you take a horse to water and make him drink? No, not if he's not thirsty, not if he's just hanging around the barn. But you get somebody active, doing the will of God, and then willing to be led by whomever God raises up with the voice of salvation. Says, listen, I'm going to send you a prophecy. I'm going to send you a prophet. I'll send you an apostle that can tell you just what to do to save your family and to save your life. All right. So that's our lesson on drinking today and on being thirsty today. Now I want to remind you of the book, My Absurd Religion, by which I make my living. I know some people are getting it. We already know there's been activity. Go to that barcode, get it, memorize the things. I was just writing the other day to people who had never heard of it before, how the religious system today is run by money. The music, Christian movies, Christian books. Before anything is decided, money is decided. Money. Will this song make us money? Will this artist make us money? Will this person make us money? Will this conference, who do we have? Who should we invite to the conference? Let's invite them. They'll have a big crowd. We don't care what they say, as long as it's Christian-y and they get a big crowd and we can pay them and give them something big, and we'll get something big, and we'll go away and big success, right? That's why it's so shallow, because the money speaks first. So you need to read this book, My Absurd Religion, find out about absurd hypocrisy. We already talked a few weeks ago about denominations that are quitting, that are kicking churches out because they're allowing women to preach. And that's in there, and the Jewish prejudice is in there. Money, hypocrisy, Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, it's all in there. Stuff you don't get anywhere else. So get the book, My Absurd Religion. Get it and the study guide with it until the next one comes out, which I'm working on. And then when you can graduate to that next level. All right. So I hope you'll do that and keep track of us. Also, don't forget our podcast. Look that up. Podcast is everywhere, right, Zion? They can get it everywhere, like YouTube and where else? Apple and all that. And that's a whole nother world, a whole nother teaching. Be sure and follow. We got over 40,000, right? Is that correct? And any downloads already. And if you're missing it, then where are you when 40,000 say, I want to do this? All right. So you do that. And until next time, bye-bye.